Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Zaleski Sports Show. Jason Zaleski here, saying good morning and Merry Christmas, everybody. It is that time of the year. Steve Maves will be along here very shortly and want to talk to you about your welcome. I don't have a whole lot of pet peeves in my life, although my wife may disagree, but I don't have a whole lot of pet peeves. But one is saying you're welcome. When somebody says, thank you for something that they appreciate, something that maybe you did nicely for them, or something that they've otherwise recognized as something they are thankful for, and the only appropriate response is, you're welcome. Not, yep, right, okay, sure thing, you bet. Forget all that. You're welcome. That's the response. And so, for that, what I'm getting at here is NFL games yesterday, and the Dallas Cowboys thoroughly destroyed the Los Angeles Rams. And as an effect of that, Packers, the Seahawks, the 49ers all clinched playoff spots. So, you are welcome.
Thank you.
That's right. That's exactly how it works. And I suppose in a really, this time of year, Steve, as we bring Steve Maves into the show here, this time of the year, Steve, playoffs, and they say playoffs make for interesting bedfellows, and that's exactly what happened here. And as a matter of fact, the Green Bay Packers beat the Chicago Bears yesterday in the 200th meeting of the Packers-Bears. And as an extension of that, after the Minnesota Vikings whooped up on the Los Angeles Chargers, essentially the Vikings are in the playoffs. Now, there is a chance that the Rams could overcome that, but that is slim to none. Yeah. And so for that, the Vikings are thankful to the Packers, and yet there will be a Monday night showdown a week from today that will end all thankfulness over in Minnesota. But as I said, the Packers beat the Bears, and Steve Maves is here to tell us all about how that happened.
Yeah, it was a good start for the Packers, 7-0 after the first quarter. But first play of the game, we saw it throughout the game. Dropped passes were the big thing for the Packers. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, the first play of the game, they tried for a home run pass, and it went right through his hands. So tough start there. Other than that, Aaron Jones, as always, has a good game. The Packers win. He had 2 touchdowns, 51 yards on the ground. Aaron Rodgers, 203 yards. Don't want to say he's been mediocre, but his numbers have been down. But you can't fault the results. So 11-3, the number 2 seed in the NFC. As you mentioned, beating the Bears for the second time this year. Bears out of the playoffs as well. Packers Vikings next week, but. Getting to the end of the decade now, the Packers 17-5 against the Bears this decade. Since 1992, when Brett Favre took over, 42-15 against the Chicago Bears since 1992. So, as Packer fan, got to be happy with that. Obviously, a NFC Championship game to get to the Super Bowl in 2011, or 2010-2011 season. So that always helps. Beating the Bears always helps too to lift the spirits of Packers fans. 2 more big division games to end the year. Packers have a clear ride to that number 2 seed. If they win out, they need a lot of help to be able to possibly get the number 1 seed with the 49ers. Losing yesterday was huge. Yes. The Seahawks now the number 1 seed. The Packers just need a Seahawks loss and maybe a couple Seahawks losses to get them over to that number one seed.
Yeah, also a factor tonight, Monday Night Football, New Orleans Saints taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Packers wouldn't mind seeing a Saints upset at the hands of the Colts. That would certainly help. I believe also that Packers may become Rams fans here, as the Rams and the Seahawks will battle next week. And so, yeah, it's interesting times when you get to this point in the season with just 2 weeks and 1 game left, the Monday night game tonight in the NFL season. Even those at the top are still kind of scoreboard watching and keeping an eye on everything else. I'd mentioned those Dallas Cowboys. If there's a game to watch next week, and if you're through with the Packers, and well, actually, you won't even have them till Monday night. So you'll be sitting around Sunday wondering, well, what do I do all day? Well, the Cowboys and the Eagles are going to play for an NFC East championship on Sunday at 3:25, and Packer favorite Joe Buck and Troy Aikman will be announcing that game. So you can at least turn it on mute, though, and watch that one. When you get to this point of the year, you're going to have a lot of those type of things. But, of course, Packer fans now all eyes ready for that December 23rd Monday night matchup in Minneapolis, and that'll be a good one.
Yeah,
I think.
Yep, absolutely. Packers took down the Vikings in Week 2, and now trying to pay back. The Packers haven't won in the U.S. Bank Stadium yet. Aaron Rodgers obviously got hurt a couple of years ago, breaking his collarbone. So it'll be a somewhat revenge game. It's only been open now for 3 years, but always tough to play in Minneapolis against the Vikings, and hopefully get over that hump and clinch the NFC North next Monday night.
Viking fans are wild, loud, not necessarily knowledgeable, but they are the other, the previous two things, though. All right, moving on to college sports momentarily. UW-Wisconsin, or UW, how about this? The Wisconsin Badger volleyball team. We're going to get into the UW Whitewater. I was kind of melding all those together. Wisconsin Badgers volleyball are in the Final Four as they made their third appearance now in the NCAA national semifinals. The fourth seed Wisconsin volleyball team takes on the top seed Baylor. Baylor 29-1. That game is Thursday 6 p.m. and you can watch live on ESPN. Usually we say you watch live at ZaleskiSports.com. Not this one. This one will be on ESPN. And then in college football, as I just mentioned a moment ago, UW Whitewater back in the national championship game. They took down St. John's University on Saturday 35-32. Max Mailer passed for 188 yards, ran for 85 and a score, threw for a score, and they will take on North Central Illinois, and that's a championship game, D3, Friday night. And so the Warhawks, not unfamiliar territory there. They've played for and won a number of national titles, including back-to-back national titles in 2013 and 2014. They look to get back and hang on their banner this year.
Yeah, North Central, a tough team out of Illinois. They knocked off Mount Union, who was the number one seed. Mount Union, a perennial powerhouse. It's usually them and Whitewater in the national championship. Mount Union fell in round 2 to North Central. The earliest that Mount Union has lost in the Division III college football playoffs since 1994, and so a huge upset for North Central. And they've marched down their way, beating Mount Union, beating Delaware Valley, and then knocking off Muhlenberg on Saturday, and heading to the Stag Bowl in Shenandoah, Texas this Friday.
Stag Bowl, love it.
Yeah.
That's a great name and a fitting name for that Division III championship here in 2019. All right, moving now on as we go across the ladder here to high school sports, and at this point in the year, Zaleski Sports is still all basketball, girls and boys basketball. Wrestling, hockey, gymnastics, though, will all start vying for our attention here after the Christmas break, after the first of the year. But for now, we've been fairly steady on basketball, and it's our girls and boys basketball Power 5. This is our third official girls basketball Power 5. We'll go through those 5 teams in the second week now of our official boys basketball Power 5. And again, these are in alphabetical order. And these are 5 teams that we think are, well, one, we think they're really good.
Yep.
And 2, we think they are deserving of your time to go out and watch, whether you watch them in person or whether you check them out live. In many of these games, again, we've said before, you make the Power 5, there is a good chance you will be live at ZaleskiSports.com, and we'll go through that schedule here as we start to go through this week's girls and boys basketball Power 5. Now, of course, watch your favorite team. If one of these 10 teams is not your favorite team, watch your favorite team. But if you got extra time, these are teams you're going to want to check out as they look to have very promising futures here in this season. All right, in girls basketball Power 5, the Colby Hornets, they've been in it all 3 weeks, and they remain in this week, though, Steve. They did drop their first conference game in the last 36 attempts. They had won 35 straight Clover Belt East conference games. They did fall at home 57-52 to the Loyal Greyhounds. But, Steve, Colby, you win 35 straight conference games. That's great.
That's a remarkable mark. Obviously, falling last week to Loyal, but being able to have that mark at 35-0 for the longest time. Obviously made it to state last year, a very good team, and still 4-2, but still a top, I guess, in alphabetical order, the Power Five. But just to have that mark at 35-0 over that stretch is can't hang your head on that. That very, very good record there for the Colby Hornet girls.
They're 4-1 in the Clover Belt East. The Loyal Greyhounds are 3-1. Just mentioned Loyal beat Colby on Friday night. Joe Anderson had the pleasure of calling that game. That game was one of our featured games on the Zaleski Sports Broadcast Network. And again, you can go back and watch any of these games. They live in YouTube forever. The Loyal Greyhounds, though, Coach Reith got the girls really going really well right now, and it's easy when you've got a player like Remy Geiger. Remy leads the team in scoring, 21.7 points per game, rebounding, 7.8 boards per game, and she also dishes out 3.5 dimes per game, and she led all scorers on Friday night with 19, and Loyal plays Spencer on Thursday, so if you're looking to watch that game, head on over to Spencer on Thursday night. The Neilsville Warriors also 3-1 in the Clover Belt, so the Clover Belt gets really crowded at the top. As a matter of fact, Columbus Catholic also 3-1, so you've got 4-1 Colby, 3-1 Loyal, 3-1 Neilsville, 3-1 Columbus Catholic. These Neilsville Warriors remain in our Power 5. They took down Greenwood on Tuesday last week. They also, check this out, Steve, they picked up a non-conference win on Thursday night against Mauston, 63-4, wow. And they did not allow a Mauston point in the second half. Jeez. Now, obviously, some of that had to be on Mauston, I think, but 63-4, that's a basketball score. You may have seen a 63-3 or a 63-7 during the football season, but that was 63-4. Neilsville will host Colby on Thursday, and that game will be live at ZaleskiSports.com. Moving right down the list, Newman Catholic 5-2, first-year head coach Paul Haig. He's got out to a great start, and Steve, you had a chance to catch up with Coach Haig last week. Your thoughts on the Newman Cardinals?
They very balanced, very talented, obviously. Taking down Assumption last week in a game that, as Coach said, they want to win the end of the halves, and it was, for the longest time, neither team had 10 points. I mean, it was, I think, probably 8-8 with 5 minutes left in the first half, and then Newman went on a nice little run to stretch out that lead. Assumption had a comeback. They had the lead 31-30, but then Newman closed out the game on a 10-2 run to knock off the Royals. The big story that I saw, obviously with Emily Bone not playing, nursing a foot injury, so that was big, but Maddie Bone came through huge. Natalie Weisenbeck, very good defensively for the Assumption Royals, but Newman too good at the free throw line and able to knock down some big shots late, put the pressure on the Assumption Royals, and get that big conference win last week.
So our recommendation is you get up and find a way to watch these Newman Catholic Cardinals, and guess what? You got a great opportunity this week. They've got 3 games this week, so plenty of opportunities to watch the Newman Cardinals at Edgar tonight. They're home to Marathon on Thursday, and then at Abbotsford on Friday, all Merriwood Conference games. Rounding out the girls' Power 5, the Spash Panthers. They've remained in it since the beginning, as the Panthers crushed Marshfield on Tuesday night, 78-42. That was the conference opener for both Spash and Marshfield. That was over in Stevens Point. And Leah Ernest and Zoe Fink will lead the Spash Panthers here all season long. And we'll have Spash Panthers live on Friday as they travel to Wisconsin Rapids. That's a girls-boys doubleheader. And you can watch both of those games live at ZaleskiSports.com, and you can also listen to the boys' game on AM 1320 WFHR. Tip for that somewhere around 7:45. It'll be 15 minutes after the conclusion of the girls' game. In the boys' Power 5 boys basketball. The Auburndale Apaches now for the second straight week kick off our boys Power 5. Again, these are alphabetical listings, so if you've got an A name, you're going to be at the top, and that's an alphabetical designation. But the dynamic duo of Cooper Weinfurter and Hunter Wright, both averaging over 19 points per game. These guys are just getting after it. And Steve, Auburndale is they're not tall.
No.
But when you've got a guard combination like that that's going to give you 40 a game, you figure you just got to find 15, 20 points from everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And the game that I saw, they like to run. Or the games that I've seen of Auburndale this year, they like to run, they like to push the pace, they like to shoot a lot of three-pointers, which a lot of teams do nowadays. Yeah. But if you have a player like Cooper Weinfurter who leads the offense, able to dish it out, able to get the rebounds and push the offense, Hunter Wright, very good on the football field, very good on the basketball court, a very upper class level team or upper class dominated team are the Apaches. So they knocked off Marathon, which is a huge win. The Red Raiders right up there with Stratford and Auburndale atop the Merriwood Conference. So it's going to be a race between Auburndale and Stratford, obviously in the Merriwood, as it has been the last number of years. So it's going to be a good battle when those two teams meet, but a big win for Auburndale knocking off the Red Raiders last Friday.
Full article with the schedules on these 10 teams available at ZaleskiSports.com. Auburndale will play on the road this week twice. They're at Edgar on Tuesday and at Phillips on Friday. Edgar, much improved team, so the Apaches will need to take these Wildcats here this year in basketball seriously. No longer just a football thing going on up in Edgar. The boys basketball team looks to be pretty darn good. And speaking of that, they did beat Neillsville last week on a Monday night non-conference game, and Neillsville comes back in our Power 5 again this week. And we mentioned that in our article, that not many concerns for the Neillsville Warriors this year. They're going to score a bunch of points and do a lot of stuff. A lot of folks, including me, thought, well, they may not be the strongest team. I don't know how they're going to take if they run up against a team that's going to bully them up and down the court. And that's what Edgar did 2 Monday or a week ago Monday. But the Warriors able to get back right over at Greenwood. That was a live game that we had on Thursday night. They beat the Indians 74-49. During that game, Alex King became the all-time boys basketball scoring leader, 1,208 points after scoring 17. He trails Jenny Lindner by about 400 points. We figured he's going to have to average about 30 a game for the rest of the way to catch her. So it doesn't seem likely, but Steve, if he drops in a 40 or something here and there, that average can run up pretty quick. And really, to catch her, too, he and his Warriors are going to have to play deep, maybe all the way to the Kohl Center. But Neillsville, a good basketball team here in the area as well.
Well, and if you score 90 points a game or 75 points a game, and you have close games where Alex can play the majority of the game, if you have a 30-point win, then he probably won't play the last half of the second half. So if he can rack up the points early, 400 points is a tall order, especially 4 or 5 games into the season already. We're already halfway through December. So as long as he stays healthy and continues to shoot, and as you mentioned, if he can average over 20, 30, 40 points a game to close out the year, that's a tall order, but it's again, if Neillsville can score as much as we think that they can, it's don't want to say not a possibility, but it's not impossible either.
Yeah, I think I made a mistake. He's about 240 points away, but still, that's a lot of points. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. First order of business, though, Coach Mike Geyer and his Warriors just want to keep winning. They're 3-1 overall right now. They do play Cloverbelt East Conference Tilt on Tuesday night against the Loyal Greyhounds. You can watch that game live at ZaleskiSports.com. And then they also finish up Friday at home to Black River Falls. Rib Lake, 4-1. Now, they did suffer their first loss of the year during the week, though the Red Men do stay in our Power 5. They fell to Prentice 64-54, and they did beat Tomahawk 67-39. Dylan Vlock and Levi Ewan are certainly going to lead this team, and they've led them into our Power 5 again for the second week in a row here this week. They do play 2 home Merriwood North Conference games this week, Phillips and Marathon on Tuesday and Friday. Going down the list, 2 teams remaining here in our boys basketball Power 5, the Stratford Tigers it'd be tough to get them out of this Power 5, I think, Steve. We'll see. We'll see. A lot of these guys played on the football team. They've done some other stuff. They're used to winning. They know how to get there. Excuse me, that mental challenge of winning in a playoff and championship level, they have that accomplished already. Now they just need to do the work on the basketball floor. They did beat Newman on Friday night, 76-54. They've only played 2 games this year. They're 2-0. They did get off to a late start because of their football success. But through those 2 games, both Chandler Schmidt and Teddy Redmond over 17 points per game. Ben Barton leads the team with 15 rebounds per game. And Stratford's 2 Merriwood opponents this week with a marathon on Tuesday. That's a home game you can watch at ZaleskiSports.com. Also listen to on 92.3 WOSQ. And they will also play home to Athens on Friday. The Pacelli Cardinals, newcomers in the Power 5 this week. And we took we rolled the dice. We took a chance. Myself, Kobe Riedel, Steve Johnson provided color during the Bishop John Paul basketball showcase on Saturday. It was a late minute add to our schedule. We're glad we went because we got to see Wes Poplinski, the Pacelli Cardinals guard, record a triple-double.
Wow.
And, that's tough to do in high school basketball. You think about this. There's only 36 minutes in the game. Unless blocks are part of your triple-double, that's, half the time, so only 18 minutes you and your team have the ball. Yet Wes was able to score 27 points, grab 14 rebounds, and had 10 dimes on the day to get the triple-double. That's just tough to do in high school basketball, to have those that kind of a stat line during a short high school game.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. 27 points, as you mentioned. The big one, the hardest one to get, I think, are the assists. I mean, you're able to pass off the ball, but then you have to rely on your teammates to make the plays. But knocking down playing as well as Pacelli has this year. They scored 100 points against Tri-County last week, but Wes Poplinski and company, I remember a couple of years ago they were struggling. I mean, a very young team, get all those kids a lot of experience now. They sit along with, as you mentioned, Almond Bancroft, but Coach Lamb and company over in Almond are always tough to play with, but Pacelli and Almond look to be the 2 top teams in the Central Wisconsin South Conference, along with Wild Rose possibly, seeing how the Wildcats are this year. But a remarkable stat line with 27, 14, and 10 for a high school kid is absolutely remarkable.
Yep, pretty good stuff. Highlights of that game are on Facebook at Zaleski Sports. You can watch the highlights as Pacelli took down Columbus in both boys and girls basketball at the Bishop John Paul showcase down at La Crosse Aquinas this past Saturday. Those highlights, again, are on Facebook at Zaleski Sports. Pacelli 4-0. They are 3-0 in the Central Wisconsin South, along with Almond Bancroft. And you can just about bet that we'll be there when those 2 meet and feature that game on our live schedule as they meet later on in the season for that first time. We think that'll be a pretty good one. So there you go, Steve, our girls and boys Power 5 here in what's essentially week 3 of high school basketball. But pretty good stuff there. Those teams, again, all playing at a very high level and having a lot of fun. We will get you our schedule. We'll talk about UW Stevens Point sports, and then we're going to head on Christmas break here ourselves. But, again, schedule for this week, all games found at ZaleskiSports.com. Colby at Stratford girls basketball tonight. So get up there and watch if you can. ZaleskiSports.com is your place to watch live high school sports. A Marathon at Stratford on Tuesday. Assumption at Marathon also Tuesday. And I mentioned that Loyal at Neelsville game. Thursday basketball. Neelsville at Colby girls basketball. Gilman at Columbus Catholic girls basketball. And, that's it for Thursday. And then Friday, Black River at Neelsville. Have that game live for you. The Spash, Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln girls boys doubleheader. And Merrill at Marshfield. That'll wrap up our week of high school sports. And then most of these kids are going on a Christmas break. We're going to go on one too. And as I say that, we will be next back on the air on January 6th. But we've got a few minutes left here in this show. And Steve is going to tell us all about UW Stevens Point. We've Got a season-long highlight package found on Facebook at Zaleski Sports Wisconsin of UW Stevens Point winter sports. And Steve, last week we saw the boys basketball team take a loss, but we saw the men's hockey team do, I guess, an upset. I mean, they pulled off an upset. But first, let's start with basketball. Tell us what you saw over there on Wednesday night.
Yeah, they didn't shoot very well. They came into the game 6-0, going up against the Bethel Royals out of the MIAC in Minnesota. The Pointers knocked down a three-pointer in the first half, and that was it. They were 1 for 20 from beyond the arc, just 5%. But contrary, Bethel was able to make a lot of plays, run up and down the court, and point. As we've seen a lot in high school sports, we've seen it, or I saw it a lot on Wednesday, a lot more missed free throws, even in the college level. The Pointers falling in their first game, dropping their first game of the year to Bethel at the Quant Fieldhouse on Wednesday night. But the men's hockey team, as you mentioned, pulling off a huge upset against the Eau Claire Blue Golds on Friday night, a 4-2 win. As you mentioned, all those highlights can be found, but the atmosphere at the KB Willett Ice Arena is unlike anything that I've ever been to. Student section always great. The fans very knowledgeable, very smart, and know their hockey and love their hockey at Stevens Point. And then they were able to go over to Eau Claire and knock off the Blue Golds again on Saturday. Eau Claire, the number one team in the country, was undefeated coming into Point on Friday. Pointers get over that hump to get to over the 500 mark on the year, and now they're off until January 5th as well, or early January, when they host Hamlin at KB Willett Ice Arena. So it's going to be remarkable to see how Coach Krieger flips the calendar and has his men ready to make the long stretch at the end of closing in at the end of the year for the Pointers hockey team.
Yeah, Blue Golds likely were the number one team.
Yep.
I don't know that ranking will stand. A lot of good hockey being played at the D3 level, and a lot of teams in contention. And listen, I mean, Stevens Point could be back climbing those rankings here too, as especially in hockey. Maybe all sports, but I notice it more in hockey. You get hot and you're just tough to beat, and really that heat comes from your goalie.
Yep.
If your goalie gets in a zone, gets in a rhythm, doesn't let anything past him or her, they are tough. That team then is tough to beat. Because of course, hockey, the puck is the object of the game, and getting it in the net is how you score. And if you don't score, you're just not going to win many games. And so teams can heat up really quick off of the skates, the stick, the pads, whatever pun you want to put on it of their goalie.
Yeah, and the way that the Pointers have a very young team, a very young goalie, a sophomore. But as we mentioned, all these guys play junior hockey before they get to the D3 or get to the college level. So all of them have been playing their whole lives, because you start playing hockey when you're 3 or 4 years old. So those guys have been on skates. It's just a matter of being able to get them experience in the net and get them ready to face the competition that they are at this level.
All year long, again, UW Stevens Point Pointer winter sports highlights are on Facebook at Zaleski Sports Wisconsin. The next one is New Year's Day. Steve, you mentioned KB Willett having a fun time there. Now the kids are going to show you what they do after New Year's Eve, and hopefully they're a little bit responsible the night before. Probably not, but anyway, they're still going to come out and have a good time on January 1st as the Pointers take on Superior that day. And then on January 4th, we'll take our first look at women's basketball as Coach Egner and her Pointers will take on the River Falls Falcons. And that game is in Berg Arena, right next door to Quant. So head on out there, check out these games, and then highlights later those nights on Facebook at Zaleski Sports Wisconsin.
Just one more before we sign off. A big shout-out to Tyler Biotish, Amherst High School alumni, winning the Remington Award, the best center in college football. We have college signing day on Wednesday for a couple of Stratford football players. A huge shout out to Tyler Biotish, Amherst alumni. Went to school with him, played basketball with him at Amherst. So a huge shout-out to Tyler winning the best center in college football.
Yeah, and likely a shout-out to Tyler, and early congratulations on being a top 5 NFL pick. We'll see what happens. They got till April to figure that out. All right, Steve. So, again, highlights all week and always on the Zaleski Sports Facebook network. Live games at ZaleskiSports.com, often accompanied by great audio and complete premium play-by-play from 1450 AM WDLB, 1320 AM WFHR, and 92.3 FM WOSQ. For Steve Maves, this is Jason Zaleski saying have a great week, everybody, and go Sports.